I'm here now with Paul King, CEO of Cannafornia Holdings, Inc. Paul, welcome.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
Paul, I've heard about your company. You guys have been sort of making headway through the huge morass of new public companies coming to market. But Cannafornia stands out for a number of reasons. Foremost amongst them is because you're in Salinas County, where there's no limit on the footprint of growing you can do. Tell me about Cannafornia. What's your competitive differentiator? How are you going to become the biggest thing?
So when California started making their greenhouse laws a couple of years ago, back in 2017, we were watching all the movement happening. We actually started in Sonoma County because we thought that Sonoma they have all these grapes growing, they have thousands of acres of properties, so that would be the place where you could grow the most greenhouse. But Sonoma, like every other county in California, besides Salinas and Santa Barbara, said that you can only have 10,000 square feet of greenhouse, even if your parcel is 1,000 acres. So you're really limited and you can't really expand that way. So we decided on Salinas, where they grow most of the country's lettuce and broccoli already.
Right.
And it was a perfect place to call our home.
Yeah, fantastic. And the climate there is like second to none for growing cannabis.
255 days of sun a year, all the labor
Right.
in place that knows how to run big farms.
Right.
Because it's not easy to set up a big farm.
Sure, and that's the other thing about that is Salinas County is sort of like California is the breadbasket of America. Salinas is the breadbasket of California in terms of produce. So it's like all of that is there, and it's already as cheap as it can get in the industry in North America, I know. So that's great. So now, where are you selling your product, and what kind of products are you focusing on?
So right now we're mostly flower. We have 200,000 square feet. We have our own nursery, so we make our own clones in-house. We breed everything in-house. We have 120 strains that we're constantly in development with, that we're R&Ding, and then we're growing about 20 strains all the way.
Right.
And then we're selling to wholesale dispensaries. I mean, we're sold out before it's even harvested, so we always know where it's going. And we brand everything in Cannafornia. Wow. We think we have the best name in the industry.
Sure. Well, and so that's an interesting point. This isn't your first rodeo in the cannabis space in California. You've got a sort of, if anybody has a pedigree in growing, it's you, correct?
I think so. I mean, I started back 5 years ago. Me and my older brother just moved out from Miami to San Diego because we heard you could grow cannabis legally in California. So we jumped over, started growing indoor because that's what got licensed first in California. And that company is doing pretty well, and Cannafornia is doing pretty well too.
Yeah, right on. Okay, great. So in terms of the California market being saturated with unlicensed supply, and how much is that a problem for a company like Cannafornia?
With the supply?
Yeah, with black market supply competing for retail dollars.
I mean, for smaller growers, it's definitely a problem because they have to make sure that they sell everything fast. They have to pay for all things on the farm. So it's really hard to be a small grower now. But I think that, if you have a good product, good quality, there's a huge market for it. And now that track and trace is almost there. We have 50,000 plants now tagged on the farm. So as soon as California says track and trace has to happen, the black market is out for the most part.
Right.
Because dispensaries can't buy from unlicensed cultivators. Cultivators have to prove where every plant goes, and it'll all be more locked in.
Sure. So track and trace, that's something that nobody's told me about yet. So that's that's the government of California finally stepping up to the enforcement plate.
Yeah, just like they have in Colorado and Washington, Oregon. Every plant's tagged, everything's in the system. You could track everything. You know how many grams per plant are being produced. You know what they're being packaged in. It basically takes it from all the way from seed to whatever the final product is.
Mm-hmm. So then the consumer they're going to know that they're buying black market product.
Well, the consumer won't be able to buy black market product in a dispensary.
Right.
They could still buy it from their local dealer. But everyone's talking about what happened with vapes recently. It's dangerous to try black market vapes. And hopefully if the price is good enough for consumers in a dispensary, they'll buy it from a dispensary or get it delivered to their house. Sure. There'll be enough options.
In Canada, the StatsCan just reported that there are more online dispensaries than last year, and the prices that online dispensaries are selling for are cheaper. Now, these are illegal dispensaries, and Canada hasn't been able to stamp them out. So what's going to be different in California?
With unlicensed dispensaries?
Yeah.
I mean, there's still like 1,000 plus unlicensed dispensaries in LA right now.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's way more unlicensed than there is licensed. And they get shut down, but then they pop up next week
Right.
in a different location. So, I mean, there's a lot of tax dollars now that are being paid by cannabis companies like ours that are legitimate, and we're paying millions of dollars in taxes. So hopefully those taxes are being used for the right reasons, and law enforcement will start shutting down all
Right.
the illegal shops that don't pay taxes and haven't gone through these major hoops that companies like us have.
Right, sure. Okay, so then do you don't own dispensaries then?
No, so our model is we want to be one of the biggest growers in the state, in the country, and we want to have the best brand, Cannafornia. And that's it. We want to sell to retail. Personally, I don't know if the retail model is going to work. In other industries, it's not really working. Most of it's going online. So we do have a delivery license too. It's called Sonic Chronic.
Okay.
But it's just kind of sitting there waiting for the right opportunity, because I don't want to build out a whole delivery infrastructure myself with all the cars and all the tech. I'd rather partner with someone that already has that might be delivering other things and integrate cannabis at the right time.
How soon till Uber starts delivering cannabis?
That's a good question.
We'll have to wait for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about how the company is structured from an investor perspective, like how many shares out, how much money did you raise at what price?
So we raised, about 2 years ago when we started, we raised 10 million and just kept our head down, built everything out, didn't look for additional capital, got to profitability this past April. And that's when we raised another 13 million. So we raised 10 million US, then we raised 13 million Canadian. And now we're looking at a raise of, we're going to start raising pretty soon here at a good valuation. I mean, I compare our numbers to others like MedMen, where it's $1 billion market cap, but they're losing 30, 40 million a quarter. So we built a company that's profitable, that's in the positive.
Right.
And still our valuation is going to be like in the 100 million range, 100, 125. So I think for investors, there's tons of upside, and
Right.
we want to take everyone along for the ride.
Sure, cool. Okay, so in that respect, like you going public, do you have a plan to go public? Do you have a timeline right now?
Well, we're here in Toronto meeting with bankers and seeing what everyone thinks about the market now. Everyone's pretty much saying the same thing. Just you're lucky that you're private, stay private, wait till the market changes, but get everything ready, get all the paperwork ready. So if the market does turn, then everything's in place. So we're just going to sit back, see how the SAFE Act goes in December. Maybe the U.S. market's going to change pretty quickly. The election year is coming up.
Right.
So Trump might use it as one of his cards to, everyone talks about abortion every election, but maybe this year cannabis will come up.
Yeah.
And so we'll see how things go, but we're just going to keep doing what we're doing and keep expanding on what we're building.
Sounds great. Paul, that's a great introduction to the company. We'll leave it there for now. I'm going to have you back next time you're in town. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, James.